Welcome in. I am just so thrilled to have you joining us for today's deep dive.
Yeah, it's great to be here. I'm really looking forward to this one.
We have a truly fascinating mission today. We're exploring ancient wisdom, specifically the teachings traditionally associated with Solomon.
Right, read at Proverbs chapter 3.
Exactly. But we aren't just analyzing this as some dry historical document.
No, definitely not.
Our goal today is to extract a highly practical blueprint for navigating modern life. And we want to do it in a way that directly applies to you.
Because it is such a rich text.
Hmm.
And, what I think is crucial to establish right from the jump is how we actually define wisdom here.
Yeah, that's a good point. How do they see it?
Well, in this ancient context, wisdom is never just intellectual knowledge.
Right, it's not book smart.
Exactly. It has nothing to do with how many facts you can memorize. Instead, it's a highly tangible, active way of living.
A practice.
A practice that fundamentally transforms how you trust, how you make decisions, how you manage your relationships, and ultimately how you build your character over a lifetime.
And the way this text is framed sets the stage for that so beautifully. I mean, it's framed as an intimate conversation.
Yeah, a father speaking directly to a child.
Right. Passing down the absolutely most critical lessons he's learned.
It's very personal.
It is. So, for our deep dive today, we are structuring things intentionally. We're going to do something a little special.
A bit of a sprint.
A sprint. We're going to summarize the core teachings and their everyday applications in a brisk, engaging segment under 9 minutes.
I love it.
And then once we have that foundational blueprint, we'll transition. We'll get into a much deeper, more psychological discussion about what this actually means for your trust and your relationship with God.
That's the ideal way to approach it, honestly.
Yeah.
We bridge the ancient world with the modern one, and then we dig into the deeper spiritual architecture behind it all.
Okay, let's unpack this. Starting our 9-minute sprint on ancient wisdom for modern life. The very first major theme that jumps out is about trusting God over your personal intuition.
Right, the classic directive.
Yes, it's one of the most famous ones in there. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart.
And lean not unto our own understanding.
Right. But I want to push back on that slightly.
Go for it.
Because in our modern culture, the ultimate advice is always, trust your gut.
Follow your truth.
Exactly. Follow your intuition. So if I'm not supposed to lean on my own understanding, does that mean I'm just supposed to be passive? Like, do I just wait around for a sign?
Not at all.
Yeah.
To understand that directive, we really have to look at the ancient worldview.
Okay.
There was this profound recognition back then. The human perception is inherently limited.
We only see a fraction of the picture.
Exactly. You and I only ever see a tiny slice. So this isn't a command to turn off your brain. It's not anti-intellectual.
So what is it?
It's a strict warning against overconfidence. When you rely solely on your own judgment, especially when it lacks moral or, broader spiritual guidance, you are operating with a massive blind spot.
Wow.
The text is arguing that God's perspective is infinitely broader than human reasoning.
So it's really about pausing for moral weighting.
Yes.
Like, if we look at a modern scenario, say you're about to make a highly aggressive business decision.
Okay.
Your gut might say, take the deal, crush the competition, maximize the profit.
Right. Your own understanding sees the immediate financial win.
But leaning not on your own understanding means you pause. You consider the ethical consequences.
You seek out wise counsel.
Yes. You ask how this impacts your employees or your community before you sign the paper.
That is the perfect modern equivalent.
Okay.
It brings a necessary humility to our decision-making. You still use your intellect, but you subordinate it to a higher ethical standard.
That makes total sense. And that concept flows right into our second theme.
The ultimate currency.
The ultimate currency. The economic comparisons in this chapter are wild. The text claims wisdom is better than the merchandise of silver.
Its gain is better than fine gold.
And she is more precious than rubies. It literally states that nothing you can desire even compares to it.
What's fascinating here
Well,
is...
wait, let's be realistic, though. In our world, money is oxygen. It's easy for an ancient king with vast treasuries to say wisdom is better than gold.
Sure.
How does that land for someone today who is just trying to pay rent?
It's a fair critique. But consider how incredibly pragmatic ancient agrarian societies were.
They were practical.
Extremely. They lived on the razor's edge of survival. A single bad harvest or a local conflict meant starvation.
Right.
So they knew exactly how vital wealth was. Silver, gold, rubies. These represented absolute security to them.
Yet the text elevates wisdom far above them.
Because it argues that wisdom produces deeper, lasting benefits. In fact, later in the chapter, the text connects wisdom to the very creation of the universe,
Oh, that's right.
stating that the Lord founded the earth by wisdom and established the heavens by understanding. It's framed as the foundational fabric of reality.
We desperately need that psychological shift today. We live in a culture utterly obsessed with financial success.
It's the ultimate metric for a good life now.
People burn themselves out, they destroy their marriages, compromise their ethics just to acquire more fine gold.
Yeah.
The text is offering a totally different metric. It suggests prioritizing long-term well-being, emotional intelligence, and ethical leadership over short-term financial gain.
It differentiates between building a life that is successful on paper versus a life that is truly sustainable.
Sustainable, that is the key word.
Wealth can be lost overnight due to market crashes or unforeseen disasters, but the character and the judgment you build through wisdom, that remains intact.
It allows you to navigate whatever financial state you find yourself in, which actually brings us perfectly to theme 3.
Stability and confidence.
Right. The promises attached to wisdom here are highly specific. The text talks about walking safely in your way so your foot won't stumble.
It promises that when you lie down, you will not be afraid, and your sleep will be sweet.
Sweet sleep. It even mentions being free from sudden fear and the desolation of the wicked.
In the ancient Near East, those promises had literal physical weight. Travel and daily labor were incredibly perilous.
You faced bandits on the roads, wild animals, unpredictable weather.
Safety was never a given. So walking safely meant living with immense clarity and direction. It meant avoiding reckless choices or dangerous associations that could literally result in your death.
Our physical dangers might look a little different today, but the psychological perils are arguably just as intense.
Absolutely.
We deal with constant economic anxiety, social turmoil, a 24-hour news cycle designed to induce panic.
Wisdom offers a psychological buffer against that.
It looks like careful financial planning instead of impulsive, emotionally driven spending that keeps you up at night.
Or thoughtful conflict resolution, instead of blowing up your relationships and then lying awake, ruminating on your bad choices.
The sweet sleep promised here seems to be the peace of mind that comes from a clear conscience.
It's the ultimate antidote to modern anxiety. When your actions align with integrity, you eliminate a massive amount of avoidable suffering from your life.
Speaking of how our actions impact our lives, Theme 4 deals directly with fairness and generosity.
The social ethics.
Yes, the text gets very granular here. It says, "Withhold not good from them to whom it is due when it is in the power of thine hand to do it."
And then it gives that incredibly relatable scenario.
I love this part. Do not tell your neighbor, "Go and come again, and tomorrow I will give," when you actually have the resources right there in your pocket.
It's so specific.
Why focus on such a specific, almost petty-sounding interaction?
Because that specific interaction reveals everything about human nature and community survival.
How so?
Ancient communities relied entirely on trust and cooperation. You simply could not survive in a vacuum. Devising evil against a neighbor or striving with someone without cause fundamentally eroded the social fabric.
The fabric that kept everyone alive during a famine or an attack?
Exactly. Delaying payment or withholding help wasn't just an inconvenience. It was a direct threat to the stability of the entire village.
Human nature has not changed one bit. We see this translated constantly in the professional world today.
Oh, all the time.
It means paying your freelancers, your contractors, or your employees fairly and on time. You don't make them chase you for an invoice for 60 days when the funds are sitting right in your account.
It means honoring your agreements.
Offering genuine help when it is within your power. And the text also explicitly warns against envying the oppressor.
That's a huge point.
It tells the reader not to envy the person who gets ahead through unethical, aggressive tactics and not to choose their paths.
That is vital, because unethical success is ultimately a house of cards. True wisdom expresses itself through reliable, ethical behavior toward others.
Without that, your personal success alienates you from the very community you need.
Exactly.
And that brings us to our final theme in this summarized sprint blueprint: humility versus arrogance.
The big contrast at the end.
The chapter ends with intense, stark contrasts. It states that God scorns the scorners, but gives grace to the lowly.
It declares that the wise shall inherit glory, while fools are promoted to shame.
Why such a harsh line on pride?
Throughout the wisdom tradition, pride is positioned as the single most dangerous trait a person can possess. Pride makes you entirely unteachable.
You think you know it all.
Right. It leads to careless, impulsive decisions because you believe you're immune to consequences. Furthermore, it ruins community harmony because an arrogant person demands that everyone else serve their ego.
While humility keeps you grounded.
Grounded, open to correction, and aware of your own limitations.
Today, humility remains the absolute bedrock for authentic growth. It defines the leader who genuinely listens to their team rather than just dominating the boardroom.
It defines a professional who can look at a failure and say, I made a mistake, here is how I will fix it.
Rather than shifting the blame, arrogance might command short-term attention, but humility earns long-term respect.
It is the foundation of lasting influence, both historically and right now.
Okay, we have been talking for the last several minutes about how wisdom dictates our actions with our neighbors, our bank accounts, our sleep schedules. It's a brilliant practical blueprint.
It is.
But looking at all these practical steps, I have to wonder, so what does this all mean for the spiritual side of the text?
It's a deeper connection.
Yeah. Do these everyday actions actually strengthen your trust and your relationship with God? Let's transition into the deeper implications here.
The short answer is yes, profoundly.
Walk me through that.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we start to see that the practical instructions in Proverbs 3 are actually spiritual exercises in disguise.
Spiritual exercises.
Let's revisit that first directive, leaning not on your own understanding. Acknowledging that God's perspective is broader than your human reasoning requires a massive amount of vulnerability.
You have to willingly admit that you don't have all the answers.
Right.
I hear what you're saying about vulnerability, but how does that practically build a relationship? If I just admit I don't know something, that doesn't necessarily make me feel closer to a divine presence.
It's about what happens after you admit you don't know.
Okay.
Every single time you face a difficult, complex decision, and you actively choose not to default to your limited perspective, when you pause, seek out moral truth, and align your actions with that higher standard, you are exercising a muscle of reliance.
A muscle of reliance.
Think of it like physical resistance training. The more you consciously rely on God's broader perspective rather than your immediate impulses, the stronger your active trust becomes.
You move beyond just following a list of rules.
You are inherently deepening an active, living reliance on Him to direct your paths.
I love that concept of a muscle of reliance. It really reframes how we look at the verses concerning generosity, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Earlier, we discussed not withholding good from a neighbor, but the text also explicitly addresses giving to God.
The first fruits.
Right. It says to honor the Lord with thy substance, and with the first fruits of all thine increase. And then it attaches this massive promise.
So shall thy barns be filled with plenty, and thy presses shall burst out with new wine.
This is a crucial area for understanding the psychology of ancient faith, isn't it?
It is. Honoring God with your resources, specifically the first fruits, was not just an ancient religious tax. It was a foundational practice of gratitude and trust.
Because in an ancient agrarian society, the harvest was everything.
Giving away the very first part of your crop was an enormous material risk. You had absolutely no guarantee that the rest of the crops wouldn't be wiped out by locusts or a sudden drought.
That sounds terrifying. You're literally giving away the food you need to survive before you even know if you have enough to make it through the winter.
It was an act of profound vulnerability. By giving those first fruits, the individual was making a tangible, physical declaration of faith.
They were actively demonstrating trust that God would continue to provide.
In essence, the practice forces you to say, I trust the provider more than I trust the provision.
The psychological freedom in that is staggering. Think about how many people listening right now are trapped in a cycle of financial anxiety.
So winning.
We hoard our resources because we're terrified of inflation or job loss or medical bills. We white-knuckle our bank accounts.
But when you apply this ancient principle today, whether that means giving your finances, your time, or your talents first, you are actively breaking the psychological grip that money has on your life.
You're shifting the burden of your security off your own shoulders and transferring it over to God.
It transforms the relationship from a transactional arrangement into deep relational trust.
An active protest against a scarcity mindset.
You hit the nail on the head. And that relational aspect, that deep trust, really comes to the forefront in what is arguably the most emotional and surprising part of the whole chapter.
You're talking about the verses on hardship.
Yes, the part of the text that deals directly with correction.
Right after it promises filled barns and sweet sleep, the text takes this really sharp turn. It says, "Despise not the chastening of the Lord, neither be weary of his correction."
It's a tough pivot for a lot of people.
Well, before we talk about the why behind this, let's define chastening for a modern ear. Because today, that word sounds like harsh punishment.
It sounds like retribution.
It sounds like being sent to the principal's office. Is that what the text means?
Not quite.
Mm.
While it does involve discipline, the original concept is much closer to course correction, molding, or pruning.
Pruning, like a plant.
Think of a gardener pruning a vine. The cutting process is sharp, and it causes a loss to the plant. But the sole purpose is to shape the vine so it yields significantly more fruit.
So chastening is about refining character, not
Right.
exacting revenge. That context is so helpful because the very next line gives us the motive behind the pruning. It explicitly states, "For whom the Lord loveth he correcteth, even as a father the son in whom he delighteth."
The inclusion of the word delight is everything.
It really is.
It offers such a profound insight into the character of God, completely challenging human assumptions. So often, when people face closed doors, sudden hardship, or painful periods of waiting, their immediate assumption is that God is angry with them.
They view their struggle through the lens of arbitrary punishment from a distant, disappointed deity.
We naturally assume we've messed up and now the cosmic hammer is coming down on us.
Right. But Proverbs completely rewrites that narrative. It tells you that divine correction is actually rooted in deep parental delight.
Consider a good parent. A loving parent does not yank a toddler away from a hot stove because they are furious with the child.
They correct the child, sometimes sharply, sometimes causing the child to cry because they love the child intensely and want to protect them from devastating harm.
The correction is the definitive proof of the love.
Grasping that concept fundamentally changes how a person relates to God in the middle of a difficult season.
It really does.
If you can understand that God's course correction comes from a place of delight, it entirely removes the shame from your hardship. It means you don't have to be weary or resentful when your plans fall apart or your character is being severely tested.
You can actually lean into the process.
You can trust him even when the pruning hurts, because you know the ultimate goal is your growth and well-being. It turns a painful season of life into a masterclass in reliance.
It moves your spiritual life from a very fragile state, where you only trust God when your barns are full and the sun is shining, to a robust, unshakable trust.
A trust that holds fast even when you are being challenged to change.
In the context of this literature, arriving at that level of trust is the absolute highest form of wisdom.
What a profound journey this text takes us on. To synthesize this incredible source material, it paints a picture of wisdom that is vastly superior to just a collection of good ideas or life hacks.
Much more than that.
It tells you to literally bind mercy and truth around your neck, to write them on the table of your heart. When you do that, the text says wisdom becomes a tree of life.
It's literally described as health to your navel and marrow to your bones.
It physically and spiritually sustains you from the inside out.
The overarching takeaway is that true wisdom is highly active. It's not just a defensive strategy to avoid getting into trouble.
Right.
It's about purposefully building a life grounded in ethical conduct, in profound peace, and in an ever-deepening reliance on a loving God who sees the broader perspective you cannot see.
We have spent this time unpacking how to apply Solomon's wisdom to your life today. But consider this provocative reality.
Let's hear it.
Solomon, the man historically credited with possessing this immense unparalleled wisdom, famously failed to follow his own advice later in his life.
It's true.
His arrogance and accumulation of wealth eventually led to the fracture of his entire kingdom.
A sobering thought.
It leaves you with a lingering, somewhat haunting concept to chew on. Is acquiring wisdom the actual finish line? Or is the daily, unending discipline of remembering and acting on it the true test of a well-lived life?
The active practice.
Exactly. You have the blueprint in front of you now. The only thing left to ask is how will you apply this information in your life?